Q Money and Orange Money has just made money transfer easier. Now you can send money from Gambia to Senegal directly from your Q Money wallet. So what are you waiting for? Get your Q Money account now and start sending money to your friends and families through Orange Money in Senegal now. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
A move has been adopted, a position has been adopted in setting up certain eligibility criteria. And I think, for me, it is an insult to really determine my eligibility on reasons other than those provided for by the Constitution. For several years, when we have been in this country, managing the affairs of this country, and serving in government in this country, our competence, our credibility, our integrity has never been called into question by anybody. The United Democratic Party believes that its chosen candidate, no candidate outmatches that candidate in terms of integrity, in terms of character, in terms of service to the nation, in terms of patriotism. But one of the eligibility criteria, and I'm sure when I read it out to you, gentlemen of the press, you will know that that is directed at Hussein Udaba, no other person. And that eligibility criteria is loyalty to the coalition. They say the candidate must have no verifiable history of sabotaging coalition efforts, undermining joint candidates, or defecting for personal gain during critical coalition moments. Gentlemen of the press, since 2017 or 2018, those who oppose the United Democratic Party have carried the message throughout the country, throughout the world, that the coalition 2016 failed because of the United Democratic Party. That the United Democratic Party sabotaged coalition 2016 failed. You can see clearly that this criteria is directed at Hussein Udaba and no other person. How can we accept such a criteria for selection of a flag bearer, even assuming we agree to a party, to a candidate led? How can we agree to that? One will process selection process. We'll be asked questions, didn't you do this for coalition 2016? And then we are put again at explaining and debunking the false statements that they have been bandying all about. But another criteria, which I think is contradictory to their party-led, or to their coalition-led, candidate-led alliance, is grassroots connections. They said the candidate, he or she must show active engagement with, and I emphasize this, with party structures. Now, with which party structure would a candidate who is selected to lead as an independent candidate, which party structures would he be maintaining relations with? Of course, naturally, it would be his own party. It could not be a party to which he does not belong. So you can see that even though they do not accept party, what they realize that parties are very important in this whole if you cannot maintain relationship with your party structures, then your candidacy, the viability of your candidacy is certainly questionable. So apart from anything, the eligibility criteria for us goes contrary, or let me say contrary, does not conform with the Constitution. We accept all conditions that the laws of the Gambia provide for a candidate wishing to contest in presidential elections. We are not going to accept criteria, eligibility criteria, crafted by people who we know in the past have been calling for people to get together and fight UDP and NPP. We have them there. We cannot accept their eligibility criteria. So you can see that from the word go, its so-called CMC was crafting rules that are skewed against UDP and the disadvantage of UDP. That is quite clear. It is quite clear that those who claim to be the mediators have themselves expressed their preferences for types of models of coalitions or alliances in this country, even before they became members of the CMC. We have seen some who attended meetings of this coalition, who were introduced as belonging to members of political party, but then suddenly metamorphosed into something else. We have seen that. So from the word go, we realized that there was something that is not completely all right, completely right. But despite that, we are not pessimists. We are optimistic. We believe that with all of this, we could still engage in constructive discussions. We could exchange views. We could engage as reasonable people and come to a conclusion that best suits this country. You want to have a governing council. Why a governing council? When you have a constitution and other laws in the country that determines how the government should be run, that determines what powers and what discretions are vested in the president. And you want to tell me that you want to have a better constitution, but yet the constitution that you have in the country, for the time being, you have to disregard that. And you tell me that that is the right thing to do. UDP does not subscribe to political expediency at the expense of the nation's interest. UDP does not subscribe to political expediency at the expense of constitutionalism. UDP does not do that, and UDP will never do that. Because for us, accepting these things would be contrary to public policy. That we agree to be governed by a set of rules that is not provided for by the Constitution. I agree that when governments come in, you can really try to abide by traditions that are universally accepted without really having them legislated on. But you cannot really put certain things for selection of a presidential candidate that you know will run contrary to the provisions of the Constitution, and upon being elected, you take advantage of the situation. Look, the Constitution does not provide for this, so therefore I am not going to abide by this. That is not UDP. We don't accept things and then renege on them. We don't do that. And that is why one of the reasons also we reject the candidate-led coalition. There is, of course, power sharing. Power sharing, everybody agrees that in any coalition, in any alliance of political parties, you will talk about how you share, offices. I don't want to use the word power. How you share offices. You cannot really forge an alliance without addressing that. But should that be the prime focus? And that has been what the majority of the proponents at that discussion, that was their fundamental approach. What is it there for us? What is in there for us, for me, is the Gambia and nothing else. We cannot start thinking of sharing offices amongst ourselves when we have not addressed key issues, or we have not set ourselves the task of addressing key issues such as unemployment, the worsening economic situation, the corruption in the country, and other things that are retarding our progress in this country. Those are issues fundamental that have to be discussed first and foremost, and then agree on those things, and then you come to the last bit of it: how do we share offices when we are elected? We see some of the suggestions on the sharing offices. For us, they run contrary to what our fundamental belief has been. We want to keep civil service, governance offices, out of the reaches of political parties. We want them to operate, governors operate, purely as civil servants in this country, not as representatives of political parties or government in any region. But then you want to allocate governors to party A, party B, so and so, making them political appointees. And that is why today our governors are operating in ways and manners that satisfy the desires of the ruling government, because they are placing places and not what is really in the best interest of the country. That is why today, when a governor sees or hears an alcalde being associated with a political party, opposing political party, they remove it from office. That is what we should stop in this country. But it's one of the things that one of the things that's proposed, in fact adopted by the majority of the people attending this discussion. That is unacceptable to UDP. What also is not accepted to UDP is the selection process, the voting. You want to put UDP after investing 30 years in the politics of this country, having structures in every part of this country, having members of the National Assembly, having representatives in the National Assembly, having mayors, councillors. You want to put them at the same level as a COSO or a political movement that was just formed in 2026. You want to put them on the same level. Is that fairness? We believe we want to have a coalition. We want to have an alliance, but an alliance that is built on fairness, an alliance that is built on honesty, an alliance that truly reflects the democratic values of our country, an alliance that recognizes the strength of political parties. You cannot equate UDP with a CSO just registered in 2016. You cannot equate UDP with a movement that is just forming. Some of them, you don't. When they tell you some of them, you don't even know who they are. I am not in any way demeaning any of this, but we are talking about realities. And gentlemen of the press, I want to make this one thing clear. We will be very unambiguous about it. If any of the political parties that are engaged in this discussion have the same political strength of UDP, they will slap us if we UDP tell them that, look, we have to be candidate-led. They will slap us. They will consider us as people probably suffering from some mental syndrome that is incomprehensible. How can a party with representatives in the National Assembly, with representatives in the councils, which has survived in this country for 30 years, against all odds, its leadership tested and proven, consistency, sincerity to the nation, want to compare them with parties that, or movements and parties that are just sprouting up now? We reject it. And we reject it for those reasons, and I think any reasonable person will really agree that rejecting such a proposal is the most sensible thing to do. Acceding to such a proposal for United Democratic Party, if we do so, we will alienate all our supporters. And let me say that we are not in this thing because we desperately want to be president of this country. No. We are in this thing because we want to see a better Gambia. And we believe that a better Gambia can only be achieved through a party-led alliance. That party-led alliance will address the ills of this country. That party-led alliance will address the wants of this country and the dislikes of this country. It is that party-led alliance that will fight corruption in this country, as in fact the party who is advocating to have a party-led alliance is the party that has been fighting consistently against corruption in this country since 1996. All others that have come on, all others that are speaking against corruption today are only repeating what we have said for the past 30 years and will continue to say on them. And we did so at a time when talking against corruption in this country was an anathema, because you risk the chance of being taken to Bambadinka. We didn't care for Bambadinka. And we spoke against the ills of this country, and we continue to do so. To equate us with people who just want to go to the negotiating table to see what ambassadorial appointment I can have, whether I could be a consul general, whether I could be a governor, because to negotiate with them and agree to those things, I think that runs contrary to our conviction. And we have said at that meeting, we believe that if we are to fail, we must fail by our principles. Now, if we are to fall, we are to fall by our principles. And if we are to survive, we will survive by our principles. We will not really throw our principles because we want to be in office. That is not the UDP belief. That is not UDP conviction. UDP's conviction is that you have to get office through legitimate means, just not through political expediency. Gentlemen of the press, with all this, the United Democratic Party has, after carefully considering all these issues, have been involved in 14 weeks discussions with our colleagues to form an alliance that
Q Money and Orange Money has just made money transfer easier. Now you can send money from Gambia to Senegal directly from your Q Money wallet. So what are you waiting for? Get your Q Money account now and start sending money to your friends and families through Orange Money in Senegal.
In fact, lessened or reduced our political engagements. Active political engagement, have we reduced it, all because we just didn't want to go out and say UDP is the party. After all that, and we did it for good reason, we now have come to the very regrettable and unavoidable decision that we are pulling out of the ADD coalition initiative, the Alliance for Democracy and Development. We are pulling out of that initiative. There are other coalition initiatives, and we are very much part of that initiative. We'll continue to participate in the discussions initiated by Apex, and we hope that we will be able to reach a reasonable compromise amongst participants. But in the meantime, I am calling on all other political parties who think alike like the United Democratic Party, who have the desire to salvage this country, to come and join the United Democratic Party, so that we build an alliance that will be formidable, an alliance that will stand up to Barrow and his so-called Grand Alliance and defeat them. You know we can't do it because Barrow and his Grand Alliance, we are contesting against UDP as a single party. And you see what we have done. We didn't win office, but you see how much we are affected their electoral ambitions. We've shown that we alone could do it. But now if you have other political parties to join us, the task will be much easier. And then together we will build the Gambia that is the want and desire of all who are patriotic. A Gambia that will fight corruption. A Gambia that will see nepotism through the back door. A Gambia that will place value on merit. A Gambia that will ensure that our young people are employed. A Gambia that will ensure that the farmers' produce are bought. A Gambia that will treat the farmers better than its civil servants. How can you imagine the president giving a promise that's intended to secure votes that will increase salaries by 30% when the average farmers own produce, the price of their produce has remained stagnant for the past 3 years. Not only stagnant for the past 3 years, but we are in the rainy season and government is shamelessly saying we have paid the $1.6 million owed to the farmer in the middle of the rainy season. You know, this is not a government that really is willing to address the problems of the farmers, and this is what United Democratic Party and any prospective allies of it are willing to do in this country. Give the farmers their due, in fact give them the premium prominence in this country than any other sector of this country. Gentlemen of the press, it is hard for me to really make this announcement, but it's reality. We cannot just go on pretending that things will work out when we know that the positions are irreconcilable. There is no use to really go on with the negotiation. The only sensible thing to do is really disengage and let those who believe in a candidate-led alliance go ahead and do their own selection of their own flag bearer. And those who believe in party-led, we appeal all of you to come, we discuss, and I'm sure we will reach an agreement that is for the good of all the parties in that alliance and for the good of this country. I thank you all. Take this. No, I think maybe when I'm answering questions. Yeah. Tell them the media team will circulate the full written text to all the media houses.
Thank you.
Yes, Assalamualaikum. I would like to ask in the local language a little bit of our local listeners. My name is Adam Ferreira. I'm working for Rejection TV and Vogue Telephone ini kalau kelani manika kauna turuna manika ramala. Kau sendiri macam mana ini ada polisi katakan begini. Pada menyala ko ating imang kami wala orang kundi na ako anak ko na ako na puro kami niya puro na lokal islam yun ba sa menyala ko wala ko for constitution of contact wala min wala aling parang ida mo pa ng political stand ng ba mo kopya mo puro na ko menyala ko wala aling parang yan ang hindi la menyala ko ya test ya local una musa ya test mi por para sumar ani por ani por kaundo mose ba ki ko ni la mose men ani sai ya fan kala kunda be pati para ni bi una muta ala ki ko ni ale ala ko so ka ka lu be ko al be ni al be ni yen la ki forum sala ko sala na kan no pour ni do ni bi ma sa kana ko fa da ko si ba
bari yamira ni ko men yimbe jablo ti do boy lam ma janto ba kada asiyata ba babito isa akumo kummalu risol fodron wolon ka fo gamol tentu men yalon ka fo rokita ADD la nyaton ko di malik camara ani mi real sodo ka fo ko patiolu ya kafu nyoma pour nga kachake si masa kunda men bijanto si abondi no nyamen na masa kunda do me alon ka ko be kala gambian ko la aju jar langdi UDP nak ngane mang ko di kilirola kiliro men ko ka fu kala ngake kilindi ba hanen to fam kuma samena united onan kankili yam yanga ke to kiliro te kala ka fu ngake kilindi nan ko di wa banak tata nyin kacha tole momo ote yaje ka ko men nyanta kel men ak ka fo nyanta kala nyame momo ni la mi reala tata dol tata je iko ngakafu nyoma bari be men tombonna asike moti me yalon ka fo ko abela patio abe bolotole abe kala independent lady entel ko al nga kafu nyoma nga tombondiro ke mola membe bola patio kono wadata ke patio patiti membe bola kono but of course ni ngofo wala be ni ne fala ka ko antel laftal de alientel tombo ni da ko rokta ka ko ay bo patio kono is finance na ko am falentino alina patio tombo pour ko nyaton ka bar kambe man ko wo kambe balia woto wo mu kulati me yalu ka ko sa ko sulo molati alla nyanta kala al hala jumalte nala al halonya nal man d'accord ala mamira ko ko tambi jata d'accord balia ka tala mo mena do woto mo non ngamira janjang e ba yudi bi ko hanide te janjana de hal hanibi na kacha ngai ngonyo ngokan nganyo kan nganya fo si sondino lafta men na ba wakati alikono inadna sartol la ka ko be fen tombona wa fanandu candidate led lamde ka ko candidate men alon ka ko abekala independently ya sartol la wa nyanta melu timmandila pour isa tano kake ila flag bearer ga siloyi tere men fodon ka ko Gambia la loi sartol men londi pour mo sikeno presidential candidate wakanyanta bare ka CMC wala tata ye fanso sartol dada ke nati ka ko mol nyanta wo sartol timmandila le jani isi ta ke candidate do asartol siata bate ado ni jube fa dolu islaf la jelelale kadu ka man amanke kuti me yanon ka yawele mo si me kadu ko ni ko competence dalon ka ko pati da nyim banko kambi men ga banko nyininga tanga me ka ko competence ayame ayano competence le ada ni mol mel fala be nyola wal yadon ka ma de competence wo sika to ni ko integrity daji ko pati da mo funta ko tafta nyim banko nyaton ka yada imari ila daji ko di fonction na ka ko ila daji ko sahatale inim mel fanen denta nyola fo itabe ni ko men ni ne kaftema wal fanan sondal ka ko ila daji ko ko be wo ila daji ko nyata jumale be CMC member ko lan ka ko misa dabo daji ko mo munete wala misa daji ko misa dabo la no ay mu ne no jumale be ko men sof bari kam men fo don ka ko adu nga fo detole du menata ko mo politicien de nyim banko kam men sabo ko atala daji ko sahata usen dabo daji nga fo ko politicien de nyim banko kam me ya lon ka ko asafa ko ate do ko no nyim katami misa dabo da mo de jam men sabo ko atala lafta nyim banko da katami misa dabo da so al kanyi ko mon men sate nyim kuma de amma mana so kuma lam ni be mana so barbitu ni man lafi iman laf dorom ba kadu kay lo satol kono iko fo dalil verifiable evidence wala ka ko cdr men ka ko isato nya yandi no ka ko tamari men lafta ka ke candidate oti party led candidate ikret makata mon di me yalon ka ko imam kuke me yalon ka ko coalition la lonya yako ke me yalon ka yoti nyale ya lon ka ko coalition 2016 kabri 3 years 5 years ngada loda ngalu afo adu bi be bon afo kadde ka ko 5 years lo wel ka ko nim president resign no president resign no but na resign da vice president le batala so ye memira ka ko bela so lokela o man soto loi mo provide for itala miralia ban sabo mole ka ko dukare baldan alta ale constitution ali alfan karandiala wala aleta mole ya melia mele constitution ya karan ya al karandiala ya londiala kana diam lal ntelu sanyi tan lulu ani saba be loi kuna janto sanyi tan lulu sabo kono constitutional cases men nyim banko kam akuma bambe ndela na beke so ke ko mo ya lon ka ko ani loi tamta mantra talentali kuma fokam men fokam ku sahari so wo ibe jumale ma woto ibe Hussein da wala ma hanin santa ko ngata candidate le ay ba fala ko ha ito ko 3 years jan ital ko 3 years jan ito ko 5 years jan so italo wo coalition italo ya sabote wadande palazzo la so ngalon ka ko wo yoni yo wulin din dala kam bar bi ngan dele de man fe fo o don ko ni ma ran ka ko duwaye même fo al ngata mawdama bada ni ko yotti bada lo sartol fanal ko ne nan fo ko esike moti me yalon ka fo ko e patiola structures ila patiola structures ini constant contact softly so isn't that as an independent candidate hanibi e ko ni na patio be do ko does it make any sense among sense make at all waya tan ka fo ke mi la nyame fam wala fam ni wala fam man sa so ko bijeto na fo ko ni be tambon do kala be tambon do kala be equal la vote la UDP ni movement o me yaram ka ko kunun namo ya lo no be ba kanya na sembola ndenga America ko mu do ya rolte de America ko wa manke kutlindinti lafta nga kafu nyoma bada nga kafu nyoma to nyakan al nga kafu nyoma kana ke nyoke toke bari ko nga kafu nyoma UDP ngali ketu ko antel ta ketula na fahamu rota mitawla ko antel ta sonna anta sonna ko hani state hani fon ko ya reserve position ki stakeholders yol na ki mo fa jumallo wadi banta mo stakeholders yol mela ron ka ko wala ko telam CMCD mediation mo il a fa place au dit les vents là député bu ka ko 53 seats la bijeto e ko 52 will contest that but one seat ni obedi la stakeholder o stakeholder bu nyande itel lo so itel be place ni la through this medium no je kam ko manke silati député tan ni sabati tan dul ni sabale banko kan o député tan dul ni saboni political parties don o femfel lafta nyantale je lo ya contest bari hani o jola hani député al fanyanta lo la nyama amang address adum ben problem al nat la nyaati ngaje ka fo ko kacabita ka nyamel ñing karta ñing lokun tani nano be ayake ni tel ngam fam muta nyanta na political activity mel bekela na be put on hold na campaign materials ñodo medada bawo ning coalition on na say be part of that coalition ila campaign material be falina de so man so do ke de batun rola so sai kala mol moy ka fa ko ni men son ta nyinna ya son la ni men son l'état asan madi yole fo on west coast ko ni lafta ni mel lafta ni ya trajedo ni mel malafiata ndel ngajira ko malaf so bitale yam banditale wala mo so wala yatin nabi ko ngana ngafo mole ka fa ko asan madi ko ni mel malafiata so bitale lo ko ngam ko mema ka ko bitale mel bi jeto ya jube ibe fankela nyame bare mbekli rokela moko tanalla mel ya don kafo ko eni UDP la mirali al kata kilenti ya banko nya nyame UDP banko nya nyame banko je wonyale ya nyame alliance on nyata kala nyame UDP ya nyaaje nyame fana ya je wonyale ko aliena na kafu nyoma fana na alliance okay ko na alliance o nani UDP alliance okay mbe baro mbabo dinolale kat UDP kilinne baro engage janto ya mera bolin robe kala nyama kam manke wonya mandi ko man fa nyoboro mandi ko ka badi mboy wala kada badi mboy la kada ya no ya mera ka ko ben supalale ino wodo badi mboy la kada so nin na ne kaftamma sal kat ka fa ko be baro na la molo be bon la de e ko be juslade ko ha opposition coalition talks has flooded but not flooded the Gambia's commitment Kata Bondi has never flooded what do never carry. And so file ko ngani tamo me ke bolon ko Gambian ko ya itande ka ko baro be bolale mol ka fa in the provinces bu ka fa ko UDP ni baro e ka fa ko Gambian ko versus baro so baro kana nyinde ka fa ko nintal bota ni NAD initiative to that is the answer for him whatever is there will ensure that a victory is honey Gambian call are still against him and Gambians will still be against him so I like the new character but ngame ka vice president ya la be ya le ngame ka foreign minister ya la be ya lo ne you know Gambian notale nu Gambian notale dele nga susarang ni safu nota nga ku fasa na da lo nga mutu lola nyenyata famol kama moli e borna kananya famol yan lahidi iko 1.7 billion dollars ibadi lana ntela nga doku so mo ba mna fulante la competence vice president can you women enterprise fund them for wallahi ni tonya bekere mambure njay ni anyi nika abafule ka ko Mr. Dabole ni push through to make sure ka ko ni women's enterprise fund a lot of Bangkok at telanga te mambure njay for the ka ko Gambia government the counterpart fund ni fire put in the budget ngol kenyumanko kaja kabu ko the new Minister of Women's Affairs gender women's may ko establish anane manke nyim banko kan minister eta budget negotiations ayake anane manke permanent secretary yodana but what more I was minister responsible for women affairs ila budget I had to go a new ministry by my permanent secretary so mtata jetole to negotiate with the finance ministry pour ila budget nyanda kadu malla fe fen kultwala a new ministry coming up not all wala to menna ni mol dila ala ro ko nyabi sar so for do man dila ngadon melke kabri be man sakunda tuma mena wa ma important follow to ngami rangela question sansada abar laba iko senelado ngo man sakunda na president ba ay kam claro ke ako abe do kulalu manza kunda do kulalu abe la jo kafula keme tansaba ku kende mirada kende kadu ko wo manza kunda do kulalu marsauto ni data marsauto ila ko do kam men samsan noya abu kake sawodi o manza kunda do kulalu wal ka tax jole e kata marsauto ka fansan adama baro wuli keme lulu kadi wakari wala kadi ala fola du ngano nit ñi fonko nit ñi 30% of 500,000 because about 150,000 ko ne be kafla la job 30% I think so so that will be 650,000 abolzo ata mani sanne ata tulu sanne kong di ata nyaaw nyaaw ka kong sang after femfene sanna bari permanent secretary me yalo kay 30% diala wobe kong sannale abda martata yow ay subo pesa abe mano sannale so no la jo kafuta kasta woni bari ko ni bo la jo kafula mele alon ka ko wala mu banko la do kulal fanki senelal sanji saba ila tiyo dakilin no ona wal fanal wal ko ma fal yol fanal jube niko sen do kula la jobe kafla by 30% 5% la fanal ko ka fo ko jari alla sene fenlu mfana basan nyin nangamo akana ke $3,000 per metric ton comme membe ke sanji saba asfunya onya ayafo fanale ko alla sene fenlu alla tiyo mbasanale toni wotonu wuli woro anya to le falo fanale so da no fanasi do ko keno is sabar pour katiyo senon nyimbanko kadi ko tiyo wala nyimbanko la ko kilo ko sulode tiyo wala banko la ko sulode atalam na biggest foreign exchange ana tatam na export product so fendila mensi nyafa is lafi kasenoke tata bonon ko ngani ngani bank fataje you know in Nyamina Nadia in CRR North. May I look up see hectares and hectares. May I look up isi tiyo doku jeto jeton jama soto good yield ya export Gambia ya fanset. But I know mankala mera da kan ko ni civil servant ni wala salary by 30% afana tab increase by 30%. That is their thinking. When they forget in Yinata Senelal. So ekwebata mebe kerinde otomba jomma ba mai azalon ka ko atelu de adama matel adama baro matel atelo ko amobula la mira la ko de atemna ado ko nyol ayo la ko na mira ko so al salo bitung December 5 al nyanta menkela dembula bral mira la ko no al sala al nyanta nyatil na wala ba jomma bitu abebul honestly that's what I said when you listen okay.
And please try to keep your questions shorter for time.
Sorry.
I said 5 minutes ago from Zimbabwe, from African community. So in your
statement would highlight that what is advocating for is a part-year policy, but not that we need to do the same. So what is your response to those who are saying that you are supporting this because they believe that this framework will be implemented itself? And my second question is, you have also mentioned that people who are on the resources, they are rumors that this is what is this true? What they are saying? What is the discussion?
The coalition what?
The coalition team.
The coalition team.
Yeah. In the discussion, the CLC, they have come this in. So I don't know if that is.
Yesterday I also read in the papers that the Coalition Management Committee CMC is coming to meet me, but they have not met me. So that answers that question. Yeah. So your other question is, it is believed that I support the party led, even though I'm not saying that UDP, but I support it with the view that UDP would lead. Well, that is an assumption. If it is agreed that it should be party led, and example, what's that about now? The Women's Popular Party accedes to a party led, and they come out with good reasons why the Women's Popular Party should lead this party-led coalition. We'll of course accede to it. We have always said that it is not that we are saying that it must be UDP, but we say must be party-led. And of course, when it comes to selection, we'll put in our bid, just as any other political party would put its bid in. So we are not imposing ourselves on anybody, and we do not and we will not impose ourselves on anybody, on any party. So let that be clear. And let it also be clear that we do not find it in any way offensive. We do not find it in any way untenable for us to put forward unambiguously the position we hold on to. If others can hold on to their positions unambiguously, no one blames them. But you want to blame UDP for holding on to its own position, I don't think that is right. I don't think that is right. So we have always respected positions held by other people, and let other people also respect the positions held by us. And they must stop looking at us as people who are sabotaging coalition efforts in this country. Why aren't you saying those who do not accede to party-led alliance, why aren't you saying that they are sabotaging coalition efforts in this country? Why should it be UDP that should be carrying the blame? Why should UDP be demonized? I don't think it is right. But of course, that is politics. You know, throw the dart on the dart and filth on your opponent, and say how will the shake it off. And we have been shaking off all these dart and filth, you know, and we are very clean. I think that is very clear. Yeah? They are not asking. They are not asking questions.
What is there? What is there? Can we please have 2 more questions and see so we can wrap it?
From? What did you want? One on the donors conference in Brussels. I think it was in May of 2018. Remember, and I'm sure another that about 9 years ago, I'm sorry, more than the 9 years ago. Yalom Yamo, the president of Yemfo at the airport. I go Kabala Minister, a baby temple, the document. I go bury. Allah will send up. Ani Amar San, the document. Nani governors from Koto. Better Lambeja Lalaba, Pako, Kodo Menal Calceta, Hani Nino, based out of Lajet. Talana. So, well, and Kodo Mesota Jeto, efforts no long. But I know well, and Uncle, they do Najamakono, the 50 million euro for agriculture to support agriculture. Within 24 hours, Namar San and Tata Paris Nadija Jego. Nada. Alcala ni surol me falla ni OIC surol me ko ni ko hanno sir lam na ya ita dunya be kono lamin sani tana nga ko do funtini na ngana dale alla jambo sa plant man bijeto ndele nga do kun tele nga funtini so jan wado man si follow meye men ka man si follow ba ya nan kanyim membe fo ina ne amwele ya fo ko hani misada ba nyime ko to nyaade ka ko tele nga ko do ina ne amwele ya fo the Basse bridges and so forth. None of my life come Mr. Abe among it data with my shopping list to China. And I got this, not only got that, but also got debt relief for the Gambia. So I knew what was it, Mangamenke, Bambafola, and Bafola. By Lanin Carol, I have not a no, then you be for a jet. Abaraka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abo. My name is Siniju from State Farm. As of yesterday, the CMC chairman said that they have not received any official letter of withdrawal from the unity. And he still considers unity as part of the coalition. My question is, has the unity submitted any letter of withdrawal, official letter, to the coalition? If no, why?
Well, let me say, the CMC never invited me or never invited UDP to any coalition talk. It is the ADD that invited us to a coalition talk. And they, those who call themselves a CMC, they were invited by ADD to be part of the process. So if I'm to resign, if it is required that I should send a written withdrawal, it is not to them that I will send it. I'll send it to the gentleman whom I really, I respect him, and I thank him for really giving me an opportunity to have some interactions with my colleague, Mr. Kamara, for his insight, for his initiative. I thank him. So, if I have to write any letter, it would be to Mr. Kamara of ADD, not to CMC. But I think when Mr. Martin went to coffee time and said, look, this is what we have agreed on, the majority have agreed on, sometimes he liked to make it that it was unanimous, which is not. But then he will say majority, and sometimes you give the impression that it's unanimous. When he said, if those who do not accept this model should go away, and they know perfectly well that UDP does not accept that model, do you have to resign? Do you have to send any letter to them to resign? When you have already told us that you can go away if you do not accept it, do we have to tell you that we are going away? And you know that our position is party-led. But in any case, does this press briefing this morning, does it leave anybody in any doubt that UDP is no longer part of the ADD initiative? Does it leave anybody in doubt about that? So if they want to use procedural routes to question, to still maintain that we are members of the this nation, I think they are wrong. Nobody should be left in doubt that we are no longer part of it. Yes.
Mr. Laro, I want to ask you a question. yako msuri kulumi bi msuri ni kama mbadi ya kuli melaka nyanga so kuli cha kama msuri because uko mundu ya taya kule kumekutola na ni kaza ba mu ndio ndio ko ko ke what political parties can move the couple of people
yalo enterprise fund for the enterprise fund may yalo cover World Bank for the support for enterprise fund te yodo ko ke wala ni honorable Mamoudou Ndiaye in fact the cabinet paper cabinet paper ni tala present and when it came to the funding honorable Mamoudou Ndiaye na de do ko ke was more World Bank representative for Dakar, and at have regular meetings with her. And who telling okay. And got cabinet approval. And having got cabinet approval, the mechanism for Kadoku were put in place and were put in motion. So Women's Enterprise Fund, Mamira, Gambia government caller, Mo Kotemba for Kankavo for Iteleta Modi.
For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
That of the Gambia government, the World Bank support.